Welcome to the Mind Your Wedding Business podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Dennis. In addition to leading the charge at Wedding IQ, I also run Fantasy Sound Event Services, a lighting and entertainment company based in Livermore, California, that I founded over 30 years ago. Each week on this podcast, you'll hear thought-provoking and empowering interviews with wedding professionals who have found success in the industry. If you're a business-minded wedding pro who loves love, but also cares about their bottom line, buckle up and get ready to learn from a new industry expert each week. All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Mind Your Wedding Business. I'm with Brandee Gaar, the CEO of the Wedding Pro CEO. So, Brandee, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this conversation today.
I am too, because I watched all the little videos that I needed to do for homework before, and I don't ever really do homework, so I consider it a first.
I feel honored. I love it. Thank you.
I had very strict instructions. I needed to do homework before, but anyway, we're going to be talking about clients and social media and how to respond to some crazy things. And you have great experience in this as well. But Brandee, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how we got you here today?
Yes. So my name is Brandee Gaar, like Kevin said, and I am a wedding planner in Orlando, Florida. I've built one of the largest planning firms here in Orlando. And about 5 years ago, I started coaching. So during the pandemic, there were so many other companies in our area, right? Everybody was just kind of like, how are you navigating this? What are you doing? And I really had the blessing of having been in the industry at that point for, over a decade. I had a really strong, community that I could ask questions to as well. I also had a large team that I could lean on. And I noticed that there were a lot of solo business owners who were just like, honestly, it was such a hard time, especially if you were solo, because it was like, where do you turn? Who can you ask questions to? Who can you trust? What's everybody doing? And so I literally just started going live every morning. I was not a coach at the time yet. I just thought, let me just go live on Facebook every morning. I'm going to start just talking about one thing that we had to deal with the day before, or one thing that we're learning, one thing we're handling. And I kind of then just kept going. I'm in Florida and we reopened in June of that year. So we were able to get back to normal business fairly quickly, but people were starting to show up to the lives. And so I kept going through October, and then just really enjoyed that kind of live aspect of being able to connect with people. And then I jumped on the Clubhouse train when Clubhouse got popular.
I was going to ask, yeah.
Yep, I loved Clubhouse, and I went all in on Clubhouse. It was like everybody was there, December 2020. I remember my husband said, you should try out this app. And I was like, I don't need another thing on my plate right now. No, it was December, crazy season anyway. And so he went in and just secured my username, and he was like, you really should just jump in. And so I started kind of listening to how it worked. And I was like, I could almost do what I did on Facebook, but on here. And then I don't even have to like put on hair and makeup, right? So I started a daily show. It was at 10 a.m. every day. And we just had hundreds of people that would tune into this show. It was crazy. And we would have guests come up on stage and talk about different things. And so that was really kind of the catalyst to my coaching career. Was people then started reaching out and saying, how can I work with you? Do you have a coaching program? And that was really what started Wedding Pro CEO. It was, I had a podcast, and kind of has evolved from just my name to now Wedding Pro CEO. And we are building out, an educational platform for wedding pros to learn how to grow and scale a profitable business. So we teach business education to wedding business owners.
I love it. And that's what we're all about here on the Mind Your Wedding Business podcast. So yeah, excited. All right. And so we're here to talk about clients, social media, and how to respond. So
such a sad topic.
I love that you let out that sigh.
Because I'm just like, oh, this is it's every wedding vendor's worst nightmare.
It is. I agree.
Yeah.
So
let's get into it.
All right. Well, we used to be afraid of Yelp and Google reviews and all that, and now the couples have the power of TikTok on their side, and so we've seen an uptick in couples using social media to give their opinions on how to work with vendors, and what went right and what went wrong with them. Some positive, some negative. So, what are some best practices when it comes to responding to like a negative social media post, or should they even respond?
Yeah. So I do definitely think that you should respond. I mean, TikTok short form video has become the new Google review, right? Honestly, you know, and that's really, I guess what I want to say is that's really what I want you to think about it like, because a lot of us think, either if you're not on TikTok, you don't think it's that big of a deal. And we're going to talk about a certain case example, right, on the show of one that just recently happened. And that vendor was not on TikTok prior to this happening at all. She had no presence on TikTok. She never even opened the app. So she kind of got like a rude, entry into the TikTok world. But you don't actually realize that it can be a problem if you're not on that app. Now, all that to say, when I say, yes, you should respond, it's kind of exactly like we would handle a Google review, not Wedding Wire, Yelp. You should be responding to all of those reviews. And I really also think that we should be handling them with the same best practices. So some of those best practices would be, one, make a public statement under the review, right? So make sure, and so I'm going to actually, Kevin, let me back up for a second. I want to talk about how we would do it if it was Yelp, Google,
Okay. All right.
the not, and then let's see how we can apply that to how it would work in social media,
Perfect.
right? So that we at least all get on the same page as what the best practices are.
Mm-hmm.
So best practices for handling, let's say, written reviews would be, one, make a public statement, right? So you've got to respond to the review. If that client has not already given you an opportunity to handle it privately, and honestly, you didn't know that there was an issue, they just kind of went straight to the review, I think it would be really smart to reach out to them privately as well. But you want to get that public statement up that's not defensive, that's honestly not even really playing out the case. It's just, we are so sorry to hear this was your experience. If you have already talked to them, as we've discussed privately, this was not what we were looking for, so that people know you have had a conversation with them, right? If you haven't already had a conversation, saying, we would love to discuss this privately. We've reached out via email and we're excited to make this right for you. Because the reality is, reviews matter. They do matter. And so we want, as much as possible, to make a situation right before it ever gets to the review, or even if they've left a review, let's make it right and see if we can either get the review edited or taken down, right? That's the best case scenario. So knowing that those are our best practices with written reviews, the same would really be true of social media reviews. And so what Kevin's referring to, if you don't already know, if you're not on TikTok, if it's not something you've seen happen before, TikTok is very much an interest-based algorithm. So that means anybody that they think would be interested in hearing that video, they're going to push it out to. And so as a video picks up steam, more and more people see it. This is how something goes viral. So what happens is, a lot of times now with Gen Z, instead of leaving a Google review, or in addition to leaving a Google review, they will go make a video review of your performance, or what they were upset about, or what they're frustrated about, or whatever. And it can go super viral, and it can be really a challenge for your brand, right? It can really go either way, but for the most part, we've seen that it's not something any of us wish to happen. And so that's kind of the new review. And so the same best practices would apply here. You always want to make a public response so that, people see that you care, people see that you've tried. In your public response, same thing you would do on a written Google response. You want to not be defensive. You want to be clear about what has been done to try to mitigate the damage. You want to be factual, unemotional, which is really hard to do in video because you can't. You can keep retaking it, but for the most part, people want to see that emotion there, right? You also want to reach out to the client and see if there's anything that you can do to make it right. Because at the end of the day, if that genuinely was their experience and you can make it right, let's make it right. Let's get the video taken down. Let's get the video edited, whatever that looks like. But the same basic principles apply. It's just that the unfortunate part is that because these videos can go viral and reach many more millions of people, it can really be a really big challenge for vendors to navigate.
All right. So can we dive into your client okay. So tell us a little bit about her. Like, she was blindsided by the video, didn't know anything about it, found out from friends or another
or coworker, I guess it was,
Mhm.
that she found out about it. So
Yeah.
I'll let you dive in and go, but because it was just watching all the videos, I did, like I said, I did my homework, and
Yeah.
I felt I was feeling for the girl, the makeup artist. So
Yeah, it was rough.
yeah.
So, yes. So Kendra Jones, she's the owner of Twirly Shears, which is a hair and makeup beauty company in California.
Hmm.
And she runs a small team there, really, really high touch, standards. And she is not on TikTok at all, was not on TikTok at
Yeah.
all. 0% never had gone on it. And a bride that had services done about 6 months prior. So this wasn't even recent necessarily, um, had made a video about how
Yeah.
she had washed off her makeup after Kendra's team, well, it's actually Kendra herself, did the makeup.
Hmm.
And the challenge was that, one, the bride never told her that she didn't like it, which thankfully she has proof of.
Hmm.
And you do, makeup artists especially do these little videos now with brides of like, do you love your makeup? Can I do a little video testimonial kind of a thing? So she had that.
Hmm.
She was there that day for hours after and never knew the bride had all of this going on behind the scenes. And so the bride made this video. It went mega viral. Tens of millions of people. Tens of
Yeah.
millions of
It
people.
said 20 something million on the video when I looked at
It's
it.
unreal.
Yeah.
It's unreal. And so, yes. So basically what you just said, she was doing a private event, and someone kind of reached out, another coworker, and just was like, girl, you need to get on TikTok. And she's like, I've never been on TikTok. So this poor thing is just, this video is going mega viral. And one of the things that's interesting about TikTok too is it's like, it's not even just the bride's video that's going viral. It's now the hundreds of creators that are making video responses to it that are going viral.
Oh.
And she doesn't even have a TikTok account. So
Hmm.
she's like, what is happening? So she has to, one, learn how to even like navigate TikTok, see all of these videos, figure out who the bride is, be like, wait a second. No, 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 no. This was a flawless wedding. Like, what happened? And I think that was the thing that really played into her favor in this is the bride never told her she didn't like her makeup. And I think that's ultimately why the internet sided with her. So,
Yeah.
spoiler alert, this one went in the bride's, or sorry, in Kendra's favor.
Hmm.
The internet strongly disagreed with the bride about how she handled it. In addition to that, if it's your wedding day, and according to the bride, it was an hour before her ceremony that she's washing off this makeup. If that's truly the case, the fact that you're stopping to keep making these videos along the way of like, oh, I'm going to wash off my makeup. Oh, I'm going to have to redo my makeup. Like, if you're really in that much of a hurry and that much trauma from this, you're not stopping to make TikTok videos about it, and then
Yeah.
holding it for 6 months and putting it together at the right
That's
time.
the part I was like trying to figure out the most. Like, I'm like, if you're really trying to go after
Right.
the makeup artist, you would have released it the next day, like,
Hello? Right.
yeah. And that's the part I was like, why did we wait 6 months?
Right. And to Kendra's point, she was like, why didn't she tell me on site? Like, I don't love
Yeah.
it. Is there anything we can change? Like, that was never something that was said. She had
Or
no
even
idea.
the week after, like, like,
Anything.
yeah, yeah. I don't
There's
get.
so many better ways to handle this. And instead, the bride released the video. And, what happened in this case is that the bride said, well, I never tagged the makeup artist. Well, right. But internet sleuths, it's not that difficult. She had tagged her in all of her wedding photos on her Instagram. So people figured out who it
Oh.
was very, very quickly, and started, doing all these support videos for Kendra. By the time she even got on TikTok, which was less than 24 hours later, she had, so many people that wanted to know more about her. So the thing that I think is like a textbook of how to handle this is Kendra took the emotion out of it. She waited. She gave herself overnight to sleep on it before she made the response video. And
Yeah.
her response video was so calm, even though she was anything but, she's like, I'm going
Hmm.
to lose my whole business over this. This is insane. Um, she was so calm, so collected. She said no negative words against the bride at all. She was
Yeah.
very factual, and her video also ended up going mega viral. And the internet, like I said, went in her direction. She had, gosh, I wish I could remember exactly. So I want to say she had some multiple hundreds of inquiries.
Yeah, it was 120 or something
Okay,
within.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I
Within
just
like
watched
a
the
week.
videos. Yeah.
It was so crazy. And so the way I kind of found out about it was, I was at a conference. And so I'm in my hotel room at like 11 p.m. and I'm scrolling, and every other video is this crazy bride video. And it's people
Mhm.
responding to it. And I'm like, what on earth? And so then all of a sudden, I see twirly shears. I'm like, wait a second, hang on a second, no way. And then I see another one, and I'm like, so I realize Candra's in my program. So I
Yeah.
immediately text her. I'm like, girl, what is happening in your world right now? She was like, I can't handle it. I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. And so
Poor
we quickly
thing.
were like, let's get in recon mode. Brought on a social media manager, brought on somebody to help kind of triage what was happening, brought on an assistant to help her with all the leads. But the reality is she has had an incredible amount of media coverage, of inquiries. Her business has grown significantly. She's just gained a lot of clout in the way that she's handled it. And so I would say, and of course the bride took the video down like the next day.
Did she really?
Yes, she took the video down immediately and closed her account because to be honest, the internet can be awful, right?
Oh yeah. It's the worst. It's a
Right,
cesspool.
because
Let's be real.
right, like Kendra and I had a real honest conversation about it, and it's like, yeah, we didn't want her to be able to do that, and she was awful for doing that, but also like people sending terrible messages to her, like, I hope you get divorced, and terrible things, and that's not right either,
No,
right? And
no, I
Kendra
agree.
didn't
I
go
agree.
do that. So, she immediately took the video down. She did reach out to Kendra directly. So it, you know, I think for her, it backfired, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But what I think is important for all of us to see is that Kendra came out immediately, because I would love to talk about one other situation that happened as
Yeah,
well that kind
let's
of went
do
a
it.
different
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
So, do you remember the sepia bride commotion?
No, I do
Okay.
not.
Oh, Kevin. Okay, so this was maybe 6 months before Kendra's incident.
Okay.
And this one, I would say, went slightly different in that there was a bride. This was photography. So there was a bride that got her photos back, and she did not like her photos. And
Mm.
she posted them all over. Again, she said, I never tagged the photographer because that's how they get away from slander.
Linder. Yeah.
And right. And so, but the reality is, again, she was tagged on her Instagram. So everyone knew who it was immediately.
Yeah.
But she made probably 40 videos. I mean, just one after another of how much she hated her photos and how, they were
Wow.
all edited. It ended up becoming called like Sepia Gate because that's it. She said there was an orange filter on all of her photos.
Mm.
Well, it really divided the internet because a lot of people were on her side and were like, your photos are awful, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people sided with the photographer because honestly, the photographer's style is 100% this type of photos she got back.
Yeah.
So everybody was like, well, what do you think you were going to get back if you picked a photographer who shoots that way, who edits that way?
Yeah.
And but it really divided the internet. And one of the things that I think, I never want to say a vendor handles something the wrong way because, to be honest, we're all just navigating this life like, what do I do? But she never came out and made a statement. And
Mm.
she really let it go on for weeks and weeks. She ended up doing one podcast that I'm aware of, which is a very well-known podcast in the industry. So that was very smart of her, but it was really one podcast that was geared more towards business owners.
Okay.
And so to me, I think one of the biggest things that makes these two cases different was that I think if she would have gone on and made a statement and kind of given her side without slandering the bride, I really think it could have gone a long way because everyone was guessing. Everyone was like, well, what did the contract say? And what did,
Mm.
what did you see a full gallery? Like all of these things. And I just think we needed her side. And I think it could have just mitigated it a lot more. The internet was literally 50-50 on this whole situation.
Oh.
And I did a ton of videos about that as well on, hey, this is what you should do as a vendor. You've got to come out and make a statement. And, I still very much run my planning business. I definitely get it. Like I don't want this to happen,
Mhm.
but the reality is it is the new way of leaving a review. And we
Yeah.
can't be afraid to step out and say, here's the other side,
Mhm. Well, and so when you're doing that, I feel like, do you need to hire professional? Like, so for these two people, like if the
Hmm.
photographer would have reached out and got like a PR or a social media
Yeah.
person to help them navigate the situation,
Yeah.
it probably would have been more successful, like how your client reached out and got help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I do think so. I also think, you know, even just say something like not defensive, obviously, but a lot of times you have such limited time to get in front of it. It's like, who would you even reach out to? What PR company would
Hmm.
you even reach out to? If you don't already have a business coach,
That's
what
true.
do? You don't have time. And so the reality is, I think it's important to, I'm so glad that you're doing this podcast because for anybody that's listening, I think one of the things I would encourage you to do is to go back and watch Candra's response. Maybe we
Hmm.
can link it, Kevin,
Oh yeah,
in the
I'm
show
gonna for
notes.
sure link it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's helpful to just be able to say, okay, I see how she handled it because a lot of times, let's think about it. If you get a bad review on Google, you need help to try to write the response. And sometimes you might go to other people's negative reviews and see how they responded or whatever. It's a similar concept here. I want you to see how she responded and how you could do that too, because often you have to react pretty quickly. I would say the number one thing is just not to be defensive. Like, do not be
Hmm.
defensive. And then the second piece of it would be, and I know that this is one of the reasons that the photographer in Sepia Gate did not want to reply, was because there was some legal action that was teetering around in
Oh,
the background.
okay, fair enough.
And so, right. And so I think that that was one of the reasons she was kind of like, I don't really want to respond publicly to this right away. And so I would say if there is legal action that's pending or that you have in the background or a possibility of it, I would say to reach out to an attorney. We have several in the wedding industry that can,
Hmm.
pretty quickly get you help within 24 hours or so, just to let you
Yeah.
know what can you say, or legally, is there anything that the client has like here, is if they do, then let's maybe hold off. But for the most part, they're usually venting about something that they're just not happy about, and it stinks. It's
So
frustrating.
no, and do they go to TikTok the most, do
Yes.
you think? Okay, and
Yeah, it's
instead of
TikTok.
like Google or Instagram or
Yeah, I mean,
any of
I think some of them probably still go to do Google because they know that the Google reviews are still somewhat powerful. But the
Mhm.
reality is, Gen Z is not even using Google as a search engine anymore. They're using TikTok as a search engine. So TikTok is their Google. I'm not saying that they've never used Google before, of course, but TikTok is quickly replacing Google for them in all the ways. And
Mm.
so it just is their place where they think they can go and, make these videos and say, here's what I'm feeling. Now, I will say, I've seen some couples that go on there and they have a genuine frustration and they know if they take it to social media, it might get fixed. Like we even see this with big companies. I saw somebody the other day that was able to get Airbnb to give her a full refund because they screwed up and she couldn't get the refund through their customer service. So she went to TikTok, it went viral, and Airbnb reached out and made it right. And then she made a video about how they made it right. And so I've seen couples that have gone on there and said something like, my photos were supposed to be delivered within 12 weeks. It's now been 6 months since our wedding. Our photographers ghosted us. We've heard nothing. I do
Mm.
think, I think there's value in being able to use social media that way.
Mhm.
I don't know that I would say I would do it,
No.
but it's a
But
way to get somebody to respond because
yeah.
they're not responding. But if you're going on there to slash a wedding vendor just simply because you didn't really like what you got, I don't really agree with that. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I do think everyone is well within their rights to write a review. That's what they're there for. But I don't think couples understand how viral and how devastating it can be for a business to give half the information and then have it go to
Mhm.
millions of people.
Yeah, because then you're not telling your whole story. They're not hearing the whole thing, and
Yeah,
then
and
that's when it all gets made up.
that's when it all gets made up because the court of public opinion joins in.
Mhm.
And one of the things I saw happen, not with either of these two cases, but with another one that was slightly less viral. But I saw one of them where a lot of just the viewers of this video were going then on Google and writing negative reviews about this company.
Yeah.
And so now they're getting flooded with 1-star reviews from people who they've never even heard of. And now
Yeah.
I will say those can be disputed through Google. So if something like that happens, those can be disputed. And I will say, I think Google has gotten a lot better because of all of this. Google's gotten a lot better about saying, yep, if they can't prove that they worked with you, then they'll kick the review out. But it's still, I mean, mentally, it's, you're exhausted, but you're also, it's just mentally very draining.
No, it's another crazy thing that we have to navigate now in the world of the wedding business that just stresses us out, because we have one shot to make this wedding perfect. And,
That's right.
now we have, this wonderful platform for the couples to go to. So do you think there's a way, like, let's like back up a lot and go to like the booking process? Is there a way you think to identify these folks before you book with them or they book with you?
Funny enough, my husband has asked that question so many times. Okay. He's like, how can we weed out the crazy before they become a client, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you always see them coming. I mean, in Kandra's case, I think what probably hurt Kandra the most is that this bride and her connected on a more personal level as well, like during her trial and on the wedding day. So she was like, not only am I just hurt by the fact that she made this video and never told me she had an issue, but also like we talked for hours at her trial. Like we shared a lot about just like our faith journey, our personal. And so, sometimes you do not see it coming. Like it just smacks you upside the head. Sometimes you do see it coming, right? I will say if you see any kind of red flags, if you know that there was
red
maybe
flags all the time, like red flag, red flag,
red flag. But if you see either a red flag or maybe you did have a service disruption, right? Like maybe you did make a mistake. We're all humans. Maybe something happened that you're like, dang it, I wish I could have done that better. Reach out to the client. Try to mitigate it privately. Try to handle it privately. Make it right privately. Even if you didn't make a mistake, sometimes their perception is our reality, right? Like it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
If you can see in any way why they would think that something you did affected their wedding, I would just say try to mitigate it privately. That does not mean be a doormat. That does not mean like pay off every person who, gets upset. But it does mean really think about it and say, could I see that maybe I could have done something differently for them? Is there anything I can offer them that would make this right? Because ultimately, even if they don't go blast you on social media, they have friends and family. Like, do we really want them to tell all their friends and family, like, this vendor wasn't great? And so ultimately what you want to do is try as much as possible to check for red flags, but we often don't see them. I can tell you right now, if I saw red flags before a booking, I wouldn't book it.
Yeah.
I'm far enough in my career now that I'm just like, I don't need business that bad. But that's what I'm saying. So often we don't see the red flags, right?
Yeah.
Like so often you're like, wow.
No,
a
but
lot of crazy.
But you're so smart because I will meet with a client and I'll get off a Zoom or they'll or we'll meet with them in person and they'll leave and I'm like nope we're not they are not for us. So and you got to be able to, because you could tell and it's just in the way they're asking questions or the tone they're asking questions. It just and it just you could tell it's not a good fit from the start. So
no, like my sales manager actually right before this call sent me a Slack and she said, we just got an email from a potential client, but they sent 78 questions they'd like us to answer before we get on a consultation.
Holy
and
shit.
I actually thought she was joking. I thought she was just like making up the number 78 because it was a lot of questions. So she said, I know how to answer most of them, but some of them I've like never even heard anybody ask before. And I was like, well, forward it to me and I'll answer it when I get off of this podcast. And I pulled it up. I'm like, no, it's actually 78 questions. 78 questions for a couple that's getting married 2 years from now, doesn't have a venue. I'm like, no. I don't care how much you're paying me. If you have 78 questions before we even get on a consult, no.
Yeah, no, thank you. No. Yeah. And
those are the red flags we can spot.
Yeah.
But they don't all come packaged up like that.
No, I don't think they do. So this is our new normal. I'm just, so this is, we got to be prepared. So that I think the more that we can get comfortable with TikTok and get comfortable with just that world, I think we just need to be prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I have a podcast episode coming up in a couple weeks with Leah Weinberg. She's an attorney in the wedding industry, and this is actually something that she's seeing more and more and more of. And her and I were talking about it, and I was like, okay, we've got to do a podcast on, I can certainly say, here's how you need to handle it from the business owner perspective, but from a legal perspective, what are things that we need to be aware of? Is there anything we can add into our contract that doesn't allow them to do this? I think that the jury's out on that, but I'm excited to hear more about that.
Well, and I'll give you a little. So Leah and I are both not Wedding Pro educators. And so we, on our last monthly call, she brought up this whole thing. Yeah. And I'm sure you guys are going to get into it about how couples are using ChatGPT to go after their wedding vendors to try to get money back. And she said the first couple, she was just like, what's going on? And now she's like, it's just this thing. And we're going through that with one of our clients right now. So that's literally, I was like, we had this one client, everything was fine. And now all of a sudden everything's not. And then I asked the girls after the call with Leah, I'm like, throw it in that thing that figures out if it's AI, and sure enough, it was. Yep. So
isn't it crazy?
Yes. So
because they can draft these legal language, and if you don't know what's in your own contract, which let's be honest, a lot of us are kind of like, this is all legal mumbo jumbo. I don't know what it means. You feel overwhelmed by these demand letters that you get, and it's like, what is happening right now?
Yeah. So it's really, I mean, it's really everyone's beneficial to get a relationship with someone like Leah, that especially someone that knows the wedding industry. I think that's what's powerful with Leah. And then there's a gentleman, I'm blanking on his name now, but in California, there's people, that specialize in the wedding and event industry. Because if you go to a normal attorney, they're not going to understand the emotion that comes with some of these.
That's it. And I think, Leah, Paige Griffith from the Legal Page is also great.
Yeah.
But I agree with you 100%. Like, an attorney in the wedding industry gets it because there's much more behind it than just like, oh, this person wants $2,000, or this person, there's so much to it. But I will say, I think, one of the key takeaways that I would say from this episode is, it is in your best interest, if at all possible within your own principles and morals and what you feel comfortable with, to not let these kind of situations escalate. And that's why I say, like, there are people who are going to just go after you because they just are that type of a person. And I really probably wouldn't negotiate with that type of a person. But there are also people who have valid, whether you believe it's right or not, but valid frustrations with something that happened at their wedding. And I would just say, think about what it's worth to you to keep it from escalating, because once millions of people see it and start making their own opinions, it can become something that you then have to deal with for months. And so, again, I don't want to say by any means pay off everybody. I'm just saying, really be thoughtful about how much you're willing to let it escalate.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we're going through with that one client right now. We found out they've got money back from the venue, the florist, and other.
You're kidding.
No. So they're like literally going down the train and hitting everyone. But I don't know if this, so, I'm in California.
Okay.
It was a Wednesday night wedding. So they got the venue on the cheap because it was a Wednesday night. So I'm like, did they overextend themselves in my head? Did they overextend themselves? And now they're trying to get money back on their credit card to,
pay it off.
Yeah, exactly. So
wow, Kevin, that is crazy.
So I think, I'll be really excited to listen to your talk with Leah, because we're actually, I run a local networking group, and we have Leah coming out in July to speak to our group. So I'm really excited to have her come out.
And so knowledgeable, so helpful.
Yeah, she's going to be perfect for that. So
good.
All right.
Yeah.
As we get ready to kind of wrap up, is there a way? I mean, I don't think there is a way to prepare, but is there any way to prepare for any of this stuff that might happen to you? Like maybe having a good CRM, like being ready for any of.
I would say the best way to be ready is to, one, again, watch Kendra's video, and I would just save it in your TikTok so that if, God forbid, this were to happen to you, you could at least refer back to it and be like, how did she handle it? So I would say that. I would also say, know what your contract says. So I know we all think like it doesn't matter. Know what your contract says. Please know what your legal rights are. And then I would also say, as much as none of us want to have an attorney on retainer, I don't necessarily think you need to have them on retainer, but understand who the attorneys are in our industry that understand how to litigate some of this stuff. Know if they're licensed in your state. I think that's a really big deal too.
Yep, 100%.
So, because nothing is worse than you getting into a situation and you don't even know where to start. Like you don't even know who to call. And so again, it's almost like insurance. You don't necessarily need to have them on retainer, but I do think knowing who is licensed in your state, what attorneys could be helpful so that if something were to happen, it's a quick phone call to say, can I retain you? I need some help.
Yeah. It's just more having a relationship with them where if something happens, you can just reach out and they're going to take your call and go from there. So
yes, absolutely. So those would be my big things. And my just biggest takeaway for you guys from this whole thing is no matter whether it's a written review or a video review, take the emotion out of it. Give yourself a minute, take the emotion out of it, step back. You will always win more favor by being factual and calm than you will ever by coming out and just saying like, this is my side. So just be not emotional, calm and collected.
No, and the people you could tell, because there's a local vendor in my market that will attack back. But it's like, hey, have you seen the latest? People will, and then and then we all start reading the Yelp review and it's like, get your popcorn ready and go from
no.
there.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
No, don't do not that. At all. I agree.
You never come out looking good about when you do that. So calm, collected, not emotional.
But real quick before we go, I just thought of something else. Is like, okay, so we focus more on the negative, but someone leaves a positive. Should we respond? It's just like, because like that's where I think people go wrong on the Google, the Yelps, the Knots, and all that. Is you need to respond whether it's good or bad. Because
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you're only responding to the negative reviews, one, that kind of highlights them. If you only respond to the positive reviews, it makes you look like you kind of put your head in the sand when something goes wrong. Yeah. And to be honest, one of the things I want to encourage you guys about is, the number of times that we've created a raving fan because of a situation where either they thought we dropped the ball or we in fact did make a mistake. We have created raving fans by being able to make it right. And so, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of feedback or, come at it head on. But if somebody does leave you a positive review and, that has so much value as well. It doesn't typically go as viral, which is sad, but that's just kind of how human nature is. But I do think that you should respond to it, especially if somebody leaves you a video review. Like if they go on TikTok and say, oh my gosh, my wedding planner was amazing, blah, blah, blah. That would be amazing to then either repost on your page and pin it. That's a great testimonial. Even send it out as an email, different things like that. So I almost feel like it would be an interesting concept that we haven't implemented yet. But, I would be interested to know if anybody has, or maybe the direction we would be going is asking more of your clients to leave video reviews versus, written reviews.
Oh, yeah.
I think it could be an interesting.
It's probably the future because,
right.
Tom Chalednik from the Knot. I just recently saw him speak at a conference, and he was saying that now it's like should be sending Loom videos it's like another thing to do, but they said that's because that's where the couples that we're dealing with now, they would rather see a 15-second video of you than reading an email.
They don't want to read an email. That is absolutely for certain. And I think, even in other industries, there's a term called UGC, user generated content. So it's, people that have used your product and they make a video about it. A lot of them are kind of bought ads at this point, but user generated content is a huge thing that people use. If you can have, clients that are okay making a quick video about how much they loved working with you, and you can put that out on TikTok, put that out on Instagram, pin it. That goes way further than a written testimonial. It just does.
I agree.
So that could be an interesting thing to try as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they always say we get older and our clients stay the same age, and we got to adapt. So that might be the next thing that we're adapting to as we get older.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I love it. All right, Brandee, great. I love it. And we're going to tag all the videos and everything in there, so all the clients or all the listeners can go back and hear everything and watch the videos so they understand what we were talking about. So I appreciate it.
And I would, if anybody wants to hear my interview with Kendra, so you can kind of hear exactly what went down from her side. We do have that on our podcast, so I can send you that link so that you can link
please
that as
send
well.
us that link, because I saw a little bit. I saw a little of one of the videos you sent was a little clip of you guys as well. So I would love that as well. So all right.
We'll
so how do we get in touch with you, Brandee? And
so
all the things, and we'll be sure to put it all in the show notes as well.
Yeah, perfect. I am at Brandee Gaar over on Instagram, and our website is weddingproceo.com, and our podcast is the Wedding Pro CEO podcast. So come over and listen, and thank you so much for having me, Kevin. This was a lot of fun.
Pleasure. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. All right, folks, we'll see you next time on another episode of Mind Your Wedding Business. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Mind Your Wedding Business, brought to you by Wedding IQ. If you've got a topic you'd love to hear us cover, or if there's an area of your business you're struggling with, let us know and we'd be happy to help. Don't forget to check out our other episodes on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're a fan, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and left a review. It helps more wedding pros find us and learn more from our guests too. Thanks again for listening to Mind Your Wedding Business. We'll catch you next time.